In 2015, this was supposed to be the car that ended the gas station. No batteries you'd wait an hour to charge, no range anxiety. You'd pull up, fill the tank in 5 minutes with nothing but hydrogen, and the only thing coming out of the tailpipe was water. 10 years later, Toyota sold 210 of them in an entire year, in the whole country. So what happened? How did the car of the future become a car people are literally suing to get out of? And here's the part nobody tells you. Why, at the exact moment hydrogen cars were dying, some of the biggest companies on Earth started betting billions that hydrogen's real comeback was just getting started. To understand the fall, you have to understand why hydrogen seduced everyone in the first place. And it starts in space. The fuel cell, the device at the heart of every hydrogen car, isn't new. NASA was using them on the Apollo missions in the 1960s to make electricity for the spacecraft. The astronauts even drank the water it produced as a byproduct. Clean electricity and drinking water from one box? That's not marketing. That's genuinely elegant engineering. Here's the whole idea in 10 seconds. You pump hydrogen gas into the car. Inside the fuel cell, the hydrogen meets oxygen from the air. A chemical reaction rips the electrons off the hydrogen, and that flow of electrons is electricity. It drives an electric motor exactly like the one in a Tesla. The leftover atoms combine into H2O, and that's your only exhaust. Water vapor, nothing else. And on paper, it fixed the two biggest complaints people had about electric cars. You could refuel in about 5 minutes instead of charging for hours, and you'd get a solid 300 plus miles of range without hauling around a battery the size of a mattress. So in the 2000s and 2010s, the biggest names in the industry went all in. Toyota built the Mirai. The name literally means future in Japanese. Hyundai built the Nexo. Honda had the Clarity. Governments threw money at it. California promised a network of stations. This was going to be the clean car revolution. There was just one problem, and it was hiding in plain sight the whole time. You can build the most advanced car in the world, but if there's nowhere to fill it up, it's a very expensive paperweight. Right now, in all of North America, there are roughly 56 public hydrogen stations for passenger cars. 49 of them are in California. Most of those are clustered in just 2 cities, Los Angeles and San Francisco. So imagine buying a car that can only realistically be driven in 2 metro areas. You can't road trip it. You can't move for a job. You can't even reliably get across your own state. And it gets worse because those stations don't just have to exist, they have to work. Hydrogen stations are fantastically complicated. You're storing a gas at extreme pressure, sometimes at brutally cold temperatures, and pumping it into a car in minutes. They break down constantly, they run out of fuel. And when your nearest station is offline, there's no backup. You can't just plug into a wall like an EV owner. Then came the moment the whole thing started to unravel. In 2024, Shell, one of the biggest energy companies on the planet, announced it was shutting down all of its light-duty hydrogen stations in California. Just closing them. The company that was supposed to be building the future of hydrogen refueling looked at the numbers and walked away. For the people who'd already bought these cars, it was a catastrophe. And this is where the story turns genuinely ugly. In the summer of 2025, Mirai owners organized a protest in Los Angeles. Not a comment section pile-on, an actual physical demonstration. Because the cost of fuel had spiked, stations near them had closed and they were trapped. One owner, a physician assistant near Sacramento, bought her Mirai for $36,000. After the stations near her shut down, her dealership offered her $2,000 to take it back. $2,000 on a $36,000 car. That's not depreciation. That's a car becoming worthless because the world it needed to exist in never got built. It escalated into a class action lawsuit, reportedly seeking around $5.7 billion. Accusing Toyota of selling a car its own customers couldn't reliably fuel, and the sales tell the whole story. Toyota sold around 499 Mirais in the United States in 2024. In 2025, 210, down almost 58% of an already tiny number. Hyundai's Nexo did even worse, single digits. For perspective, Toyota sells more than 300,000 Camrys a year. The Mirai had become a rounding error, a fraction of 1% of the company's sales. The car of the future was, by any honest measure, dead. But infrastructure was only the visible wound. There's a deeper reason hydrogen lost the car war, and it comes down to one unforgiving word: efficiency. Let's follow the energy. Say you start with 100 units of clean electricity from solar or wind. To make green hydrogen, you use that electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. That step alone loses a big chunk of your energy. Then you have to compress the hydrogen or chill it and transport it. More losses. Then it sits in the car, gets fed through the fuel cell, and turned back into electricity to run the motor. And that conversion loses energy too. By the time you're actually turning the wheels, you've thrown away roughly 2/3 of the energy you started with. Now compare that to a battery electric car. You take that same clean electricity, put it straight into a battery, and pull it back out to drive. You keep the vast majority of it. Something like 70–80% makes it to the wheels. So for a passenger car, hydrogen was fighting a battle it could never win. It needed 2 to 3 times the clean energy to drive the same distance, cost more to fuel, and demanded a brand new nationwide network of stations that batteries simply didn't need, because the electric grid was already everywhere. And there's one more dirty secret. That beautiful only emits water promise depends entirely on where the hydrogen comes from. Today, more than 95% of the world's hydrogen is what's called gray hydrogen, made from natural gas in a process that pumps out carbon dioxide the whole time. So a lot of zero-emission hydrogen cars were quietly running on fossil fuels with extra steps. The genuinely clean version, green hydrogen, made with renewable electricity, was supposed to get cheap fast. In 2020, the forecast promised hydrogen at around $1.40 a kilogram by 2030. Instead, the cost went the wrong way. Today, green hydrogen runs closer to $4 to $6 a kilo, while the dirty gray version costs under half that. The dream got more expensive, not less, and that broke far more than just cars. 2025 was a bloodbath for the hydrogen dream, and not just for cars. Across the world, companies canceled close to 60 major clean hydrogen projects in a single year, nearly 5 million tons of planned hydrogen production that will now never be built. The steel industry was supposed to be hydrogen's killer application. Making steel produces a staggering amount of the world's carbon emissions, and hydrogen offered a way to make it clean. But ArcelorMittal canceled its flagship green steel project in Germany. Salzgitter pushed its plans back years. ThyssenKrupp stalled. The reason was always the same. Green hydrogen was just too expensive and the electricity to make it cost too much. Energy giants bailed too. Shell halted a hydrogen hub in Norway. BP exited a massive project in Australia. Iberdrola slashed its hydrogen targets by 2/3. Here's the stat that sums it up. Of all the green hydrogen capacity announced across Europe, only about 4% is actually under construction. The rest was press releases and PowerPoints. So if this is where the story ended, the verdict would be simple. Hydrogen was a beautiful idea that lost to physics and economics. The end. Except that's not where it ends. Because while all of this was collapsing, something else was quietly being built. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Hydrogen didn't fail because the technology was fake. It failed because we pointed it at the wrong target. A passenger car is the worst possible use of hydrogen. It's small, it's light, it sits parked most of the day, and it competes directly with cheap, convenient batteries. But flip every one of those factors around, and hydrogen suddenly starts to win. Think about a heavy long-haul truck. It has to carry enormous weight over enormous distances. To do that on batteries alone, you'd need a battery pack so massive it eats into the cargo you're paid to carry, and you'd lose hours charging it. Hydrogen flips that math. The fuel is light, you refuel in minutes like diesel. And that terrible efficiency penalty matters a lot less when the alternative is a truck that can't carry its load. And this is real today, not a concept. Hyundai has been running fleets of its Xcient fuel cell trucks hauling freight in California. Toyota, even as its car business cratered, announced it's building hydrogen Class 8 trucks to take on diesel. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach are using hydrogen equipment to move cargo. Amazon, UPS, and FedEx have all been piloting hydrogen in their operations. A prototype hydrogen rescue truck recently drove more than 1,800 miles on a single fill of hydrogen. A Guinness World Record, verified with the tank sealed the whole way. That's the kind of range and endurance batteries still struggle with in heavy vehicles. And beyond trucks, there's the quiet giant, industry. Factories already use hydrogen by the millions of tons. For refining fuel, making fertilizer, producing chemicals. Industrial hydrogen demand actually grew over the past year. The opportunity isn't inventing a new use for hydrogen. It's taking the enormous amount we already make the dirty way and making it clean. And a handful of real green hydrogen plants are now actually running in China, in Spain, in Chile. China, in particular, has quietly become the factory of the entire hydrogen world, building most of the planet's electrolyzers, the machines that make green hydrogen in the first place. So the comeback isn't the future they sold us in 2015. Nobody serious thinks a hydrogen sedan is going to sit in your driveway anytime soon. The comeback is narrower, harder-nosed, and honestly more believable. Hydrogen not as a replacement for the family car, but as the answer to the problems batteries can't solve. The heavy, the far, the industrial, the hard. So did hydrogen cars fail? Yes, completely. The passenger dream collapsed under bad economics, missing infrastructure, and a physics problem it was never going to beat. The people who bought in got burned, and they have every right to be furious. But writing off hydrogen entirely because the car failed is like writing off electricity because one gadget flopped. The molecule was never the problem, the application was. The hydrogen future everyone was promised isn't coming, but a smaller, smarter, more stubborn one might be. Running through ports and factories and the long empty highways where nothing else quite fits. The question isn't whether hydrogen is the fuel of the future, it's which future we were ever talking about.